There's a Sam Hyde quote which goes something like, "When we win, don't forget, these people wanted you broke, dead, your children brainwashed and abused, and they think it's funny." And that's very much the case in Britain, thanks to the Camp of the Saints party, also known as the Greens. Now, they have fallen from a March 2026 high of 21% to 12% in the latest YouGov opinion poll. And part of that is due to political expediency, because now that Andy Burnham has taken over the Labour Party and has admitted hope not hate into the highest echelons of government, well, the radical left thinks it's getting what it wants. And also, exposure to Zack Polanski's odious teeth and personality has meant that his personal favourability ratings have plummeted, and the Green Party's polling along with it. And of course, there's always the tension between their paradoxical camps of doctrinaire Muslims and people who dress like the villains from Mad Max dancing on stage with said gay Jewish leader, Zack Polanski. But it doesn't stop these coalitions of co-belligerents teaming up because their differences are actually subordinate to their hatred of you. The thing that binds them together is that they want you dead and they want to take your stuff. And this has been on display recently when Zack Polanski posted a highlight reel of Green Party activists on his Instagram, and one of said activists was wearing a shirt that was a play on words for the 1970s hit "We're Making Plans for Nigel," with a depiction of a guillotine, implying that he wants to decapitate Nigel Farage. Now, Zack Polanski was actually referred to the police by Reform UK over this post. The police are refusing to proceed with charges, and Zack Polanski then went on BBC Newsnight and said he was actually the real victim of all of this. But this is going to be an increasingly common thing. This guy is symptomatic of the Reddit dirtbag left. My viewers in the United States will be familiar with this kind of person. Overweight, has one too many Funko Pops, slubbish clothing, rarely takes a shower, and watches copious amounts of left-wing streamers like Hassan Piker or Vorsh, who they somehow think are coherent and intelligent, who can openly wish violence on their political opponents and not get banned from platforms such as Twitch. But first, this video is sponsored by Rumble Wallet. Britain is fast becoming the Soviet Union, where everything you say or buy online is being watched for potential wrongthink, and despite the Constitution, my friends across the pond in the United States aren't faring much better either. That's why libertarian nerds invented crypto, so you can have a say over your funds and what you spend them on. After the 2008 financial crash, Bitcoin was designed to be an alternative to banks, so that you couldn't be debanked, have transactions denied, services withheld, or funds put on hold. If you've ever been refused a bank account because you're a politically exposed person, you know how frustrating that is. Which is why the guys at Rumble have developed Rumble Wallet, to simplify your crypto transactions and make sure you remain uncancelable. You can use Bitcoin, dollar-backed stablecoins, or even digital gold backed by real gold. It connects with MoonPay, which is registered with the Financial Conduct Authority. So you can safely link your debit card, credit card, or bank account and be ready to use it within minutes. And for a limited time, you can start your Rumble wallet with $20 in US stablecoin. You can use that to tip your favorite Rumble creators, like me. Just enter my exclusive promo code Connor20 when you sign up. Rumble ensures we all have a platform to speak about the threats facing our respective countries without the fear of cancellation. They're good guys, and if they weren't doing the right thing, I wouldn't be working with them. So thanks to them for sponsoring this video. Download Rumble Wallet, try it for yourself, and remember to use my code Connor20 for $20 in US stablecoin to tip to your favorite creators. Restrictions apply. There are a limited number of entries available. Terms and conditions also apply. See the description below or visit rumble.com/promo-official-rules for details. And if you want to get all of my content without ads, you can subscribe to my Substack for as little as £5 per month. It's linked down in the description. It's also where I'm posting exclusive essays and updates. Now let's get back to the video. And we have seen this stochastic terrorism, as this side likes to call it, the steady drumbeat of calling your enemy a Nazi, a fascist, a racist, far right, putting them in the crosshairs of anyone violent and febrile enough to believe such accusations, especially under the post-war morality, which says if you kill Hitler, you're actually a hero. We've seen this play out in the attempted assassinations of Donald Trump, the murder of Charlie Kirk, and the subsequent left-wing celebration of his death as being just a racist podcaster, and of course the recent murder of Anne Widdecombe, allegedly committed by a communist who had tried to previously firebomb Nigel Farage's London home. And so it's in this climate that Zack Polanski posting things like this, well, we would say this is reckless and irresponsible, but it's actually on brand for Polanski because he previously said on a podcast that we need to build a society without the far right or people who identify as right-wing, who are set on destroying our society or pushing this toxicity towards migrants, refugees, the marginalised, the disabled, his coalition of resentful freaks who he would like to weaponize against normal people, steal all their stuff and plunge our country into Sodom and Gomorrah. And so he, in Soviet-esque fashion, like a Maoist, believes in pushing the far right out of society. Anyone who disagrees with him should presumably be either re-educated, expelled, or, in the belief of his ardent activists, executed. And he also, after posting that photo of the guy with the guillotine t-shirt and saying, well, I didn't know it was there, I didn't know anything about it, he then decided to like a post on Bluesky saying that left-wing politicians must be perfect in every way and can't make minor mistakes, while right-wing politicians are free to call for race riots and pogroms, expelling millions of people because they're not white, praising Hitler, goose-stepping and Sieg Heiling around the quad, etc. So he liked the post, yet again, calling reform, restore, anyone on the right who he wants to push out of society, Hitler. Which means you can kill this person under post-war morality. That's all that accusing someone of being like Hitler, like a Nazi, means. It is putting a marker light on that person, a bounty on their head, for your most deranged and delusional activists who have nothing to lose by killing them. They actually think they're going to become a martyr to the communist cause by assassinating someone. And unfortunately, the lack of consequences for Charlie Kirk's killer and the subsequent schizophrenic discourse about men in maroon shirts and beekeepers and Mossad planting the wrong gun at the scene has meant that the climate of left-wing violence has continued to grow. And this is especially alarming because, as of the local elections, the Greens have started holding significant power across the country, and one such place is Lewisham Council. Lewisham Council now is controlled by the Greens after decades of Labour control. They were declared a borough of sanctuary when Labour controlled the council in 2021, and now the council, controlled by the Greens, has voted to impede the deportation of illegal immigrants in Lewisham by refusing to cooperate with Home Office immigration raids. And the person quoted in this, who put forward the motion, is Green councillor How You Tom. She proposed the motion, and she said in January 2026 she had been present at an immigration raid at a nail bar in Catford and a car wash in Brockley, attended by the then Immigration Minister Mike Tapp and a Sky News crew. She is the Cabinet Member for Communities, Sanctuary and Healing. Again, the Orwellian language of, we're kind and compassionate, we're basically Paddington Bear as we funnel limitless numbers of foreign rapists into your country. And she said in the council chamber, despite the resources, despite the spectacle, only 2 people were arrested and both were later released on bail. A few months later, a nail bar was raided again, and again a few days later. According to local accounts, Chinese women workers were filmed, handcuffed and intimidated by a large officer team. They were not arrested, but they were intimidated. This is political theatre. This is a theatre of cruelty. And if the purpose of race is simply enforcement, that's grammatically incoherent, we should judge them by their outcomes. But, according to Unseen and other organisations, there's no evidence these operations are making our community safer. Our immigration system is broken. Okay. Your definition of a safer community is nobody being deported. My definition of a safer community is millions of people leaving the country who are likely to take my tax money, commit murder, and rape women and children. So the Greens just want as many people in the country as possible. Remember their internal document that said 5 million people a year would move to Britain under Green Party policy? And they kept that policy. Remember on their website they said they believe in open borders? Remember that their immigration policy is to treat anyone who is physically present on British soil as equivalent to a citizen, giving them benefits, giving them voting rights, everything. They see no distinction between illegal and legal migrants. They see no distinction between British people and foreigners. They see no distinctions between criminals and law-abiding, tax-paying natives. And it just so happens that How You Tam objects to the raiding of Asian nail bars, which, despite them not being the perpetrators of violent crime, are still often criminal enterprises, money laundering fronts. I mean, look at the number of Vietnamese people in jails. So, How You Tam, a foreigner herself, wants to turn Lewisham, not far from me by the way, there are bus routes that go through my area that connect to Lewisham, she wants to turn Lewisham into a holding pen for violent third worlders. Now, this is the consequence, again, of local elections, so you should be voting in your local elections, even if the options are rather slim pickings. This motion was supported by Labour councillors and the Green Mayor of Lewisham, Liam Shrivastava. Why is there a Mayor of Lewisham? We should be abolishing all of these Potemkin posts that are just hotbeds of sedition, that are just making everything worse for everyone. But Labour councillor Andrew Bourne said, "We're in support of this motion, but we're making amendments to strengthen it. We are here to support your motion." So he was very firm on Labour's support for limitless numbers of foreign criminals in Lewisham, in green control areas. And the mayor, Liam, said, "I'm incredibly proud that Lewisham Council has made this historic decision to defend our migrant workers against the hostile environment. Immigration raids do not build safety in our communities. They spread fear and make it even harder for victims of modern slavery and trafficking to come forward and seek protection." No, it means that there are more. You characterize them as victims, but many of these men are paying the people smugglers willingly. There are more people using trafficking, smuggling services, entering into indentured servitude, working illegally in the black economy for gig operations like Deliveroo, Just Eat, Uber Eats, Uber. There are more people doing that if you keep pathways to illegal migration open, and also people just don't want them here. So even if you sign the appropriate paperwork and make them legal, people aren't going to stop having immigration as their number one issue. They aren't going to stop wanting these people removed from their country to turn it back into a familiar feeling home again. And when they say, "Oh, we're making our communities safer," what they mean is, we are pandering to our ethnic client groups who would like to take your stuff. It's not a community in terms of a locale with a defined population who have roots there, who are concerned about their safety and their prosperity, who want to know one another, because they can't speak these people's languages. If you've been to Lewisham, I used to work there when I was a teenager. It is just a series of miserable battery farms built to just stockpile as many human beings there as possible. Run-down infrastructure, a train station that's well connected for commuting places, but it's not somewhere you'd want to get off and on and spend the day, and like an African market every day. Oh, and by the way, an endless number of stabbings. Loads of people get stabbed to death in Lewisham every year. There are just horrendous crimes that happen in Lewisham all the time. Such as the guy last year hanging out of his window opposite HSBC in Barclays, swinging a knife around in a standoff with armed police. Or a woman in 2024 killing her landlord by bashing him over the head with a frying pan and stabbing him and his cat. That was Habiba Naveed, and she was of the belief that she was actually Jesus Christ and also the daughter of Princess Diana and Dodi Fayed, and that she was in a fight with the devil and lost. Why are random schizo foreigners in our country? The Green Party wants more of them. And they just made it almost impossible to remove them if, and she's right to accuse the Home Office of theatrics here, if our weak-willed Home Office, who doesn't actually intend to deport anyone anyway, goes to them and relies on them for cooperation. The one thing, again, I will agree with the Greens on, is that the government's efforts to deport illegal immigrants and stop the boats and smash the gangs are performative. They're all theatrics, because they're inventing new safe and legal routes for the very same people that would cross on boats to come into the country anyway. I don't want theatre, I want results. I want all of these people gone. It's not just Lewisham. Green Mayor of Hackney, Zoe Garbett, gender goblin herself, has also announced that Hackney Council will not facilitate any immigration enforcement actions, nor work with the Home Office, and never will under her administration, and that she's announced Councillor Masala as the migrant champion. So, appointing an immigrant as an advocate for why migrants should be given more of your stuff at your expense. Because we pay all these people's salaries, by the way. And Hackney Council is also adopting a principle of maximum trans inclusion across what we do. Again, it doesn't matter if these positions are reconcilable. It doesn't matter that Queers for Palestine are a suicidal proposition. It doesn't matter because they hate you more than they hate each other. And they want your stuff more than they want to iron out the contradictions in their own worldview. And so it becomes a violent and successful political operation. And even in areas that aren't batshit insane, like inner London, Bristol, Brighton, you have the Greens admitting that the people that they're bringing into the country under these sanctuary city proposals are violent. Because you have Rachel Millward, and she's the deputy leader of the Green Party. And she is saying that violence against women and girls is not an immigration problem. I mean, it disproportionately is. More than half the sex offences in London are committed by either foreign nationals, first generation or second generation immigrants. So the majority of sex crimes in our capital city don't need to happen because those men don't need to be here. Disproportionately, men from India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Eritrea, they are responsible for sex crimes in our country. They don't need to be here. So actually, violence against women and girls is a predictable outcome of third world migration, because that's how those men treat women in those countries. And thanks to the internet, and thanks to a fetish being pushed by porn companies, they are under the misapprehension that white women are promiscuous, willing and waiting for them. That's why there have been so many abductions and assaults outside of nightclubs. That's why these men are enticed via people smuggling gangs with footage of white women recorded without their consent, dressed immodestly by their Muslim country standards, which essentially markets Britain as an open-air brothel, which will also pay their bed and board. And so she is sitting there denying this, saying that actually asylum seekers are scapegoated and demonised. But as Roy McComb, the former deputy director of the National Crime Agency from 2014 to 2019, points out, these small boats are a national security threat. It's not just predation on women and girls. It's that we have criminals, foreign agents, terrorists coming from subversive countries like Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan, who have already killed people, like Dawood Safi stabbing Wayne Broadhurst to death when he was walking his dog. Or the guy who committed the Hartlepool stabbing attack of another illegal migrant, but also a pensioner, and said, well, I did this for Gaza, and if I had a Kalashnikov, I would have killed children. McComb said, the small boats threat is there for everybody to see. They're filled with young, military-age men. This should scare the life out of any reasonable person. It's being treated by the authorities as a humanitarian crisis, and it's not. These people being smuggled in, and then they are effectively being facilitated by the very liberal attitudes we have to wander around the countryside. Even if they're stopped, they can say, I'm an asylum seeker, and be entitled to protection, which is why those immigration raids in Lewisham and Catford and the like result in people being let go. Because they say the magic words, I am oppressed, which they've been told to say by charities like Care for Calais, and they're let go. And they're told, oh, we'll check on you in a few months, and they just disappear into the system. And it's not like we don't know the character of these men even as they arrive. I mean, you just look at the countries they come from and see that they have made those countries that way, and if they really were doctors, lawyers, engineers, they could have improved their country rather than fleeing it, and presumably leaving their families behind, but also just their actions on the boats. Because, as Rachel Millward was saying this, running cover for illegal migrants, 3 women died on board a boat crossing the English Channel. And apparently, they all died from heart attacks. Excuse my skepticism there. I mean, we know how the coyote gangs treat women and girls crossing the American southern border. We know how these men behave towards white women in our country. Excuse me if I don't think these women died comfortably or of natural causes. And again, we have reason to believe this, and the Greens should know this, because it's happening in their constituencies. Brighton is Britain's Portland. Maybe they're in constant battle with Bristol for that title, but it's also a Green location. It is the gayest place in Britain, and I'm not using that pejoratively. They are proud of it. It is also controlled by the Green Party. It is also one of these boroughs or cities of sanctuary. And 3 men, 3 illegal migrants from Egypt and Iran, have now been jailed for raping a woman on Brighton Beach, filming it, laughing at, torturing her. These were the men, one of whom looked like the mouth of Sauron. He looked like the trickster from the Sarah Jane Adventures. These are Abdullah Ahmadi, Ibrahim al-Shafi, and Karin al-Danasat. Karin al-Danasat was the guy with the teeth and the rag over his head. They attacked this woman in the early hours of the 4th of October 2025. Ahmadi was from Iran, al-Shafi is from Egypt, and they were jailed for 21 years. Al-Danasat, also from Egypt, was convicted as a secondary party for filming the attack and was jailed for 18 years and 6 months. I don't think these men are going to be deported because, of course, they're going to launch a claim under the European Convention on Human Rights that they will be tortured for being rapists should they be returned to their country of origin. Each of the men were living in a Home Office hotel in Horsham at the time of the offence, will also spend a further 6 years on extended licence and serve 2 years and serve 2/3 of their sentence before they can be considered for parole. The things that these men did to this woman have ruined her life. And the Greens think that these men should never leave the country. They think that they should be encouraged to come to the country. They think they should be given refuge, housing, gainful employment, presumably benefits, in green boroughs. So the Greens are encouraging a policy that they know will result in women and children getting raped and murdered. The Greens just want you dead. That is the result of their policy. That is the result of their own supporters' rhetoric. And again, you might be thinking, oh, you're exaggerating. They clearly can't condone this kind of sexual violence that has left this woman breaking down in tears in court and saying every time she closes her eyes, she sees the filmer's face laughing at her, the guy with the mouth of Sauron gums, haunts her dreams. They couldn't possibly be excusing this. Well, do you remember the member of Scottish Parliament, the Green member of Scottish Parliament, who is an Indian here on a student visa who isn't even a citizen? Well, he said the other day that he thinks rapists are demonised and that rape is a spectrum.
And I think our distaste towards rape is towards rape. It's towards the idea of and the act of rape, not towards the myth of this monster rapist, as now we've born to be thinking of it that way. Because there definitely is a demonization of rape, in the sense of it is a spectrum.
Yeah, I for one am happy to be demonising rapists, especially when, in his case, he looks like an actual demon. But the Greens and their elected officials think we should be bringing more of them in, not deporting them, and not demonising rapists. And Millward knows about this, because she fought to block asylum accommodation in her own area. This is the Crowborough asylum site. They were going to house asylum seekers in former military barracks. Wealden District Council leader Rachel Millward said the extension of Crowborough Army Camp would be incredibly disappointing and warned it could increase tension and disruption to daily life. This was a month before that LBC interview. So she knows the kinds of men who would be housed near her and her family, and she doesn't want it in her own backyard. She is a demographic NIMBY. I guarantee the demographics of her area are unanimously white British. Oh, would you look at that? The areas around Crowborough are about 90% white British. Imagine my shock. And Millward, personally, tried to block the asylum accommodation. Wealden District Council Deputy Leader Rachel Millward said the police authority had sought legal advice after it was announced that 600 people could be placed at a training camp near Crowborough. Millward told the BBC that councillors could not halt the move with their usual planning powers since the site was Crown land. The Home Office said it was working to end the use of asylum hotels to ease pressure on communities across the country. So she, as the leader of Wealden District Council, has sought legal advice to stop the government putting the same asylum seekers she said are demonised in her area. Because she knows that when you have these men running around, they will do what they did in Brighton. They will do what they did to Wayne Broadhurst. They will do what they did to Rhiannon Sky White. They will do what they have done to countless women and children. And the Greens know this. They just don't want it to happen to them. They want it to happen to you. They want their political opponents exiled or exterminated. And they want thousands of rapists in the country for you to pay for it. And when they attack you, they will retreat into their gated communities to a safe position from which they can call you a racist. Be under no illusion, these are not good faith political opponents who are just misguided in their beliefs. They want you dead and they think it's funny.